Welcome back to another episode of the Apache podcast. Just going to be updating on the recent visit um, Jared Kushner and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to to Moscow on the new either 19 or 20 peace plan. So we're going to be delving into that. Uh,
Putin is digging.
this is a video on the after. Um, I think Putin made this video before he met with Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. So I actually got a few things that I wanted to discuss about. But all right, let's watch this video.
In on one of his key demands to end the war on Ukraine. President Putin vowing that Moscow will seize Ukraine's Donbas region by military or other means. It comes as the Ukrainian source tells CNN a delegation from Kyiv is traveling to Miami for a fresh round of peace talks with their American counterparts. That's after a lengthy meeting between Putin and US negotiators in Moscow this week that ended without a compromise. Well, let's get the latest from international.
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember, like, so Jared Kushner is the son-in-law of Trump. And then you have Steve Witkoff, who is essentially the just some real estate billionaire who got very successful and then got picked to do this. I've heard that he was okay when it comes to negotiation between Israel and the Palestinians or Hamas. Um, but you're also talking between Israelis versus a militia. You know, I don't know why you would send a economic person or someone who almost have no foreign policy or foreign experience to deal with Russia multiple fronts. Um, I don't know about Jared Kushner. I don't know what he, yeah. But so from what I've heard, no, when Putin was making this video, uh, or not making this video, but when he was doing his little pep talk, um, I think he made Steve and Jared wait for like 3 hours before he even joined them. So that was interesting. I mean, that's definitely a power play on Putin's side. And then of course this is all after um, you know, this is all after the whole um, Steve pretty much coaching Ushakov on how to talk to Trump. So
Security correspondent Nick Payton-Walsh is live in Kyiv. So, Nick, how do you read Putin's comments as this Ukrainian delegation prepare to meet with the Americans? And does this set back progress, in essence?
Yeah, look, I mean, he's not just saying he'll either take Donbass through diplomacy or by force. He's saying he'll take Donbass and Novorossiya, which is a term, frankly, we haven't heard for quite some time. Historical, used at the beginning of one of the first or the second invasion in 2014, and referring to a significant swathe of Ukraine that Russia, from sort of Tsarist times, claims is essentially its territory, probably pointing to the remainder of Kherson and Zaporizhia regions that are not occupied by Russia.
so what he is saying is for the Donbass and the other name, I don't know how to pronounce it. So Donbass is essentially two regions, two oblasts. You have the Luhansk and the Donetsk. So this entirety is the Donbass region, and you can see some of this yellow, some of the regained territories, including some areas that are under Ukrainian control. What I mean, of course, during one of the 28-point peace plan was they wanted the entirety of this region, including this region, this area that's not, that's owned by the Ukrainians. or controlled by the Ukrainians. But at the same time, you know, they have, I mean, you can look at this, I believe this dark shaded area is controlled by Russia since 2014. I don't know how much Donetsk and Luhansk region they, or this was, you know, already before 2022 February, but I mean, they had over a decade to fortify this region, um, or I mean, most of the region really. But this is where the Russians are having issues with breakthrough. So, and then when what was saying that Putin wanted two regions by force or by diplomacy means was all of Donbass and potentially Zaporizhia and Kherson region. So they're all southern.
Russia. So essentially, Putin perhaps returning to his most maximalist territorial ambitions for Ukraine. Is this part of a negotiating strategy? Did he actually receive the proposal from Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, in the Kremlin on Tuesday more welcomingly, with perhaps greater recognition for concessions? We don't know. We do know that Ukraine's top negotiator is in Miami today, going to be getting a proper debrief from both Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, and his envoy Witkoff, presumably going through the more detailed elements of the Kremlin response, if indeed there was detail to that response. It may simply have been that Putin took whatever concessions were being presented to him after these lengthy US-Ukraine talks, trying to get something together, and said, no, I want more. But there has been a significant flurry of activity by the Europeans, by the Ukrainians, most of it, I'm sure, an element of debriefing to try and be sure everyone's aware of exactly what the results of those meetings were, but also probably to a bid to show there is.
I'm trying to think of the timeline. I think the timeline is so of course about 2 weeks ago, um, Steve Witkoff had a meeting with some of the Russian representative regarding about a leaked 28-point peace plan that I broke down a little, I believe last week or sometime this week. And, you know, everybody's saying it's the Russians' wish list. I mean, I think that's just, you know, that's exactly, that's, in my opinion, that's the, you know, full surrender of Ukraine. Um, but, and, um, and of course, before Witkoff and Jared Kushner met with Putin, they met, I believe they met the Ukrainian delegation as well. And then right after the Putin meeting, they met, I believe the day after, with the Ukrainian delegation again to discuss, you know, what, you know, how did the talks go in Kremlin? So.
Continued diplomatic activity to find some kind of compromise. But it's really been Russia who've offered the most detailed assessment of that meeting, talking about a 27, 28-point plan, 4 other separate documents, and essentially saying no compromise was reached and they saw no immediate need for Trump and Putin to meet. Remember, Trump has said, I'm not really going to get involved in this until the deal is done. He also yesterday talks about how he thought that the meeting had gone well, and indeed that the US-Ukraine relationship or their proposal had gone well. It does appear at this point that the Kremlin have dug their heels in about what territory they want. We still don't publicly know whether a concession or a land swap was part of what Witkoff brought with him. We've heard very little from Volodymyr Zelensky, Ukraine's president, in terms of the detail of what was offered or the detail of what he's willing to go along with. That is clearly by design. He had a press conference today that turned into statements only, essentially, in which negotiations were not mentioned alongside his Cypriot counterpart. So a lot not being said, a lot of activity being projected by Ukraine and its allies, and I'm sure some details too to be imparted in Miami in these forthcoming talks. Where does it go? I think the fear is that the Ukrainians with the European allies want to certainly maintain this sense that work is being done, that there is compromise to be reached, that there is activity they can engage in to prevent the likely next phase of this. We've been through this process so many times.
I think, I don't know. I think that, you know, we're going back to it's 2 step forward, 1 step back, or 2 step back, 1 step forward. We're just going in circles at this point. I mean, Trump has some kind of bipolar when it comes to, one week he supports the Russians, the other week he supports the Ukrainians. So he can't really make up his own mind in this regards. Um, but at the same time, um, what really boggles my mind is like the American narrative who who says that this is a European problem. This is a Europe's war. But at the same time, the Trump administration makes no effort in letting the Europeans even have a voice. I believe that several discussions um, are high level discussions are directly involved with the U.S. delegation and the Russian delegation, and the Europeans are nowhere to be seen. But of course, Zelensky is making his way to Ireland and some other European countries. But I think that as much as I know that the Europeans can't really do much, I think that, Zelensky's just going around his field trip around Europe is pretty pointless. He's just getting standing ovations and applauses everywhere he goes. It's good and dandy for him, but he's not getting, and he's getting all of these countries' support, but at the same time, without the United States, systematically bring in the Europeans, EU and NATO's alike countries to kind of rally behind, it's not going to go anywhere. And I'm even willing to say that, maybe the Russians' objective in all of this is, of course, territory, parts of Ukraine territorial gain, but also, I mean, the United States, have tried so hard to redirect Russia away from China, and somehow it it kind of, I don't know if it got backfired, but it almost looked like the Russians are doing the same thing to pull the United States away from Europeans, kind of circle. Um, I mean, and it's working. Whatever the Russians is doing, it's working because right now, there are European countries and European leaders who view the Trump administrations as enemies. I mean, you have talking points like, um, what's going on with Israel. You have issues with potential annexation with Greenland. Um, yeah, so there's just a whole lot of nonsense, and we're not getting anywhere. Um, yeah, continue.
For, and that's White House frustration that often ends in pressure on the negotiating parties. In the past, we've seen Trump realize it's easier to pressure Ukraine and do that rather than pressure the Russians. And I think that's what many in Kiev are fearing here. They need to keep this feeling like it's moving forwards or risk potentially another bout of threats potentially from President Trump.
Nick, thank you. Let's turn to New Delhi, where Russian President Putin arrived a short time ago for a two-day state visit. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is hosting a private dinner for his guests tonight ahead of their summit on Friday. It's Putin's first trip to India since the start of the Ukraine war and comes as Modi tries to steer a diplomatic course that balances India's relationships with both Russia and the US. For days now, Russian and Indian flags have been flying in the Indian capital, with posters of Putin gracing public places and government buildings. Joining us
I mean,
from
this
New Delhi.
this is a major deal with Russians visiting India, but I think that um, because all of this kind of came, was it a few months ago, a few months ago, where Trump finally um, decided to put sanctions on India uh, regarding Russian oil, and I think that the relationship between like Russia and India, I don't know if it's gotten worse. I mean, it's definitely gotten better because before the war, I believe the last time I read the numbers were 2.5 to 5% of oil from Russia, and now they're up to like 30, 35, 40% import of oil from Russia. So, I mean, of course, the amount of sanctions that Russia has been hit on is pretty hefty. But yeah, I mean, this is this is one way Putin's is pretty much gathering his or showing to the world that he's not alone. As much as the West think that Russia is isolated. I mean, he's got India, he's got China behind his back, and several other Middle Eastern, Asian countries behind him as well. And Russia itself is a part of the BRICS country, the BRICS alliance. I don't know if you call it alliance, but economic partnership at least with with India, Brazil, South Africa, and I forgot the last one. But I mean, the BRICS, five country of BRICS is bigger than the G7. Uh, so GDP speaking, so that's saying something. Um, yeah, I mean, I just think that that India will continue to buy Russian oil and other Russian resources, at a major discount. So.
Senior international correspondent Will Ripley. So, Will, high on the agenda for Putin's visit.
And yeah, that just goes to say that the sanctions doesn't do anything. Yeah.
Are more defense deals with Moscow. The question, though, is how much support is Putin likely to get?
Well, it seems as if things are off to a good start. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was at the airport. He greeted Putin as he walked off his plane. Then the two jumped into a limo together and they sat and talked as they drove to that private dinner. It's a similar scene that we saw play out in China after the SCO summit a few months ago, where they actually stayed in the park limousine and talked for nearly an hour. So the two have a warm relationship that has been on display publicly repeatedly in recent months. See them, holding hands, smiling, joking. They did the same thing together with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. And so we already know that a number of deals are basically already negotiated, and the two are going to be signing them here in Delhi tomorrow. Deals.
And that's right. I forgot about that. About a month ago, all three of them, so Putin, Modi, and the Chinese president Xi Jinping, they all met together, and they were having a great time. I mean, they were hugging, laughing. So yeah, I don't even know if it's the West collective agenda to pull Russia away from China. I do know that it's the United States goal is to kind of wedge in there between China and Russia. And I mean, I don't know if it might even made their bond and partnership stronger. So.
On energy, deals on fighter jet sales, and potentially even technology sharing, with Russia offering to help India domestically produce the Russian fighter jets that are the backbone of their air force.
India is, I believe, it is the fastest growing economy of the world at this point. So.
There's also on Prime Minister Modi's agenda an effort to try to rebalance trade between the two countries. Right now, India is buying a lot more from Russia, especially when it comes to the cheap oil that's been on sale ever since the Ukraine war began. Russia's not buying a whole lot from India. Prime Minister Modi is under political pressure here to change that. So there's a lot that they can do. And of course, they know the optics are important, and somebody in the White House specifically.
You see that guy? That dude.
To change that.
Yeah, it's so serious.
Russia's not buying a whole lot from India. Prime Minister Modi is under political pressure
to
change that.
Oh.
So there's a lot that they can do, and of course they know the optics are important.
Look at that.
And
He just
somebody in the
so
White
stern.
House, specifically President Donald Trump, is going to be watching very closely after that.
He doesn't
summit
look Indian
in China,
to me, does he?
Got in the limo and talked together. President Trump, I think it was on Truth Social or somewhere, basically said he thinks that the U.S. lost India to Russia. So obviously, he loves to be in the room with these guys as well. He he likes to be part of the conversation. And the fact that he's sitting on the outside watching the two of them projecting confidence, projecting the fact that they have leverage and they have other options besides the United States, that's got to be getting under his skin just a little bit, even though both Modi and Putin have a lot that they need to sort out with President Trump. Modi would like to get a trade deal secured with the United States. He'd like to dial down some of the tensions that have been rising in recent months, particularly over the purchases of Russian oil. And of course, we know that Russia, as Nick was just saying, they're talking with the United States about ways to end the war in Ukraine. But
I am curious to what the trade deal is between the United States and Russia. Or not United States and Russia, United States and India.
Democracy, certainly bolstering his case that he doesn't really have to give up much. He can keep on fighting until he gets what he wants.
Will Ripley in New Delhi, thank you. Well, we're joined now by military analyst Frans Stefan Goddy. Frans, it's great to have you. I'm sure you're in there.
200 billion in 2024.
I just want to start with this latest line from President Putin vowing that Moscow will seize Ukraine's Donbas region by military or other means. I mean, when we consider the talks that have just happened this week, it was somewhat predictable, was it not, that Putin was always unlikely to accept any deal when the odds right now are currently stacked in his favor, both on the front lines and diplomatically?
Yes, you're absolutely correct on this matter. Vladimir Putin, Russia, thinks that it still has military options and that it currently is winning on the battlefield in Ukraine. Russia is taking significant casualties, but it is slowly advancing and attriting Ukrainian forces. So it was always unlikely that Russia would accept a temporary ceasefire or even commence serious peace negotiations, just because it is still in the process of creating military facts on the ground.
I mean, we are in effect back to square one potentially, but with options now more exhausted for Ukraine than in previous rounds of peace negotiations. You've said that Ukraine now face a terrible catch-22, which is to agree to concede the Donbass in exchange for a fragile peace, or fight until Russia forced to and take it from them. But are Russia's chances of that so certain, given they have failed to achieve taking the Donbass and other land after 4 years of intensive warfare now?
I mean, this is important because it matters when it comes to because I believe just the week before Thanksgiving, Trump kind of sort of not really made a ultimatum to Zelensky, whether he agrees to sign the 28 point peace plan, or Ukraine will lose a key partner, the United States. The United States will stop military support, will stop intelligence sharing, and whatnot. But at the same time, here comes another situation. Of course, I don't know what the United States are going to do with the recent meetings between the Kremlins and the Ukrainian delegation. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Trump is going to come out with another ultimatum, by Christmas. But I don't know. I feel like the timelines are a joke, if anything. I mean, it was only recently, after 6 months of warnings and timelines, that the Trump administration finally put sanctions on the Russian oil companies. So,
well, war is always highly contingent. Of course, it's unclear whether Russia can accomplish those objectives over the next couple of months, over the next couple of years. However, having said that, it is...
Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at the last 18 to 24 months, the last 2 years or so, I mean, the Russians have gained very minimal advancements in territories, and heavy casualty. I mean, of course, the Ukrainian casualties are up there as well, but you have numbers throwing around of upwards of 1 million I believe even mid 2024 or early 2024, that was the number of figures. And of course, the Trump team really likes to push, the amount of people that's dying on the Russian side, and the Ukrainian side. But I mean, I think what the United States and our government don't understand is that the Putin doesn't care. The Russians doesn't care how many bodies they're going to throw at it, because at the end of the day, the Russians still has more bodies to throw at than Ukraine in a 3-to-1 ratio. The Russians have about 150, 140, 150 million ish or so, and then the Ukrainians have about 40 to 50 million. Of course, that number changed a lot with mass exodus and people fleeing the country. So, but yeah, I mean, the amount of territories that the Russians have gained are very, very insignificant. And of course, they've even reached out to foreign countries, uh, to participate in the Russian warfare. Uh, you know, you have people like South Korea, South Asia, places like that.
Clear that the war overall is not going well for Ukraine, that it is trending slightly negatively for Ukraine, and that Russia currently is making advances in the Donbass. So it's probably likely that Russia is going to gain additional territory in the Donbass over the next couple of months than not. So I think time is actually on Russia's side in this matter. The West, Trump, NATO, other supporters.
Don't get me wrong. Because everybody thinks that, Ukraine's gonna win this, or Ukraine's gonna do that, Ukraine's gonna do that. Ukraine's not gonna do anything without United States approval. That's Europe is not gonna do anything for Ukraine without United States approval. And as sad as that is, it's yeah, that's how politics works. Even when the United States is saying that, this is Europeans' war, yet, completely leaving Europeans in all discussions, low delegations and at the highest level. Um, and of course, you have Europeans who are running in circles trying to appease Trump in their favor, and it's getting nowhere. Um,
Of Ukraine may have clocks, but Vladimir Putin and Russia certainly have time to just wait out the West.
yeah,